3 clues at the end of chapter 18 give me an interesting thing to chew on and think about. Is this Iraq? Is this Babylon there on the Euphrates River? Is this Saddam Hussein? Or is it a seacoast city in which there is a deception of drugs, there is wealth that's been unparalleled in history, and there are deals being made that ignore persecution of God's people? It doesn't matter. It's about money. And if that be so, what seacoast city could that be? Could it be Babylon is not on the Euphrates River inland, but it's the seaport city of New York? This is where a field trip to New York would be great. To just wander through New York and walk around New York and say, oh, I won't keep you a long time because I know it's late, but I got to throw this out to you. Is Babylon America? And what does that mean? There's some scriptures that intrigue me. Turn there quickly, please. Turn with me to Isaiah chapter 18. Isaiah chapter 18. I'm throwing this out for your consideration. But in chapter 18, woe, verse 1, woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. The idea of rivers of Ethiopia in Bible times was it's beyond anything we can relate to. It's like Timbuktu. It's way out there. There's a land shadowing with wings. What is the ensign or the symbol of America? The eagle with wings. You've seen our coat of arms. You know our national symbol. It's the land that has the shadowing of wings beyond, in Bible days, beyond anything we can imagine, location-wise, geographically, that sends ambassadors, verse 2, by the sea, or over the sea, literally. This land that's way beyond what we understand, that's overshadowed with wings, sends ambassadors. That means it's a powerful nation, but they send their ambassadors overseas. So, insignia of wings, beyond their location, across the ocean. Go ye, it says in verse 2, to this nation. Go ye, swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled. Now, if you have a margin reference, look what the word scattered is translated as more correctly, outspread. The word peeled, simply as your margin says, means polished. It means spread out and polished. This land that's overseas, that sends ambassadors across the oceans with wings overshadowing it as an ensign, if you would, is a nation that is polished, and it's a nation that's spread out. The idea of peeled or polished speaks of sophistication. Spread out means it takes a great deal of territory. It expands, it spreads out. It's large in size. A nation, it says, verse 2 goes on to say, this nation being talked about, meted out and trodden down. Again, if you look at your margin, a nation meted out, the Hebrew there is line by line, meted out, stepped out, line by line, and trodden down. The idea there, very definitely, is expansion through conquest. This nation, whatever nation this is, it's beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that has an identification with outstretched wings that sends ambassadors over the ocean, this nation has moved line by line and trodden down the people who were in the way. Interesting, is it coincidental that our nation was developed in just that manner, called the manifest destiny? You know the story. We're destined to go from sea to shining sea. We're going to march right across. And James Polk, of course, our president, felt it was a mandate divinely given, and that nothing should stop us in meeting out, in outspreading our nation. And if indigenous people get in the way, so be it. Trodden down, let it be. I'm not saying that this is talking about America. I'm just saying it's interesting. And it goes on to say this. While they're polished and outspreading and all of these things are described here in chapter 18, at the same time, verse 2 goes on to say, whose land the rivers have spoiled or have been spoiled. Pollution. That is, in their moving out and their spreading out, there is a pollution problem. There's an ecological disaster that happens. Interesting, but not as interesting as the next chapter. Turn to chapter 50, if you would, of Jeremiah. We've got to move rapidly. Chapter 50 talks, of course, chapter 50 and 51 describe the destruction of Babylon. For you who want to study further, there are 3 sections of the Bible you've got to really be familiar with to understand Babylon as it relates to prophecy. Isaiah chapter 13 and 14, Jeremiah 50 and 51, and Revelation 17 and 18. So for you who are jotting those kinds of notes down, Isaiah 13, 14, Revelation 17 and 18, Jeremiah 50 and 51. Check this out. Talking about Babylon, can we find out who Babylon really is? Well, this we do know. Verse 12, for example, your mother shall be sore confounded. Talking to Babylon, talking about Babylon, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed or astonished. Now, when Babylon is being judged, 17 and 18, particularly 18, talks about the literal Babylon being judged. The mother is going to be confounded and is going to be astonished. So this nation, Babylon, has a mother. Historical Babylon does not have a mother. Our nation does have a mother, and that is who? England. And the mother nation, when they see the destruction of Babylon, is going to be confounded. Oh no! And astonished. Whoa! When the mother nation sees the destruction of her offspring, Babylon. Well, it says in verse 37 of the same chapter, and talking about this destruction of Babylon, a sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. Babylon, whoever she is a nation of mingled people. Historical Babylon is not a multi-ethnic nation. It's an homogeneous people group. It is not multi-ethnically diversified. So Babylon is a nation of mingled people. So with this we do know. She has a mother, and the mother's going to be amazed when Babylon comes crashing down. And she's a nation that's multiracial, mingled people. Then in 51, interesting, verse 13, in talking about Babylon. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Babylon, whoever she is, dwells on many waters. Historical Babylon does not dwell on many waters. In fact, no waters except for the river Euphrates. But there is a nation that dwells on many waters, uniquely. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico. And did you realize this? That 1/4 of all the fresh water in the world today, 1/4 of all fresh water in the world today is in the Great Lakes. They're in Michigan. All the fresh water in the world, 25% is in the Great Lakes alone. It's an amazing thing. We are incredibly blessed by and surrounded with water. We are a nation that dwells upon many waters. Then, quickly, verse 49. As Babylon, verse 49, hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, literally, allowed Israel to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of the earth. This simply says that Babylon, when Israel is going through her time of being attacked, Babylon allows Israel to fall, which means that Babylon and Israel exist at the same time. Babylon and Israel, when Israel is attacked in the end times, Babylon is a figure, is a power, is an entity that factors in the equation. And that's to say simply that America, when you talk about these days in which we live, how could we not be in the equation? We live, obviously, at the same time when Israel has been rebirthed, May of 1948. But it seems as though that this Babylon is going to allow, at least, Israel to fall for her own reasons. And this obviously stirs up the righteous indignation of our Father in heaven. Check out 53, our last verse we'll look at in this context. Though Babylon should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength, yet from me shall spoilers come, saith the Lord. Not even if Babylon could, but Babylon will, verse 53, Babylon will mount up to the heaven and fortify herself in the heaven. In other words, Babylon is going to go up in the heavens and build forts in the heavens. Now, again, Bible teachers and preachers for centuries said, how do you go up to heaven and how do you build forts in the heavens? And then comes NASA, Star Wars, space programs. There is no question that our country fits this description of going up to the heavens. We're the only ones that have gone to the moon. We are fortifying ourselves even as we speak in our weaponries and fortresses in space, you see. So, John, let me get this straight. On one hand, you're saying that Babylon, the city, is being rebuilt right now. It's coming along incredibly. It's getting done. By and large, it is complete. There's still more work that's going on, but the city of Babylon, Saddam Hussein has constructed it, which would seem to then fulfill the prophecies about Babylon in the end times, chapter 18. But now you're saying that Babylon is America. Do you really think that? Could be. Don't know. I'm open. It could be that the literal city of Babylon in Iraq will somehow become the commercial center of the world. It could just as likely, in my opinion, be that what's talked about here is our country and perhaps New York City specifically. It fits. Don't know. But somehow we have to deal with this issue when we talk about the end times and study Bible prophecy. Where is America? If America is Babylon, if God says, you call yourself America, I call you Babylon. your materialistic madness, your consumption of delicacies upon yourself, you're manipulating the world, you're exploiting of the world economically, and fornication happening constantly as it relates to crass materialism. God could be saying, you can call yourself America, but I'm calling you Babylon. And it could very well be. Because if America is Babylon, now we understand how America fits in to the scheme of Bible prophecy. Evidently, it chooses to throw her lot in as an ally with the Antichrist. Not a part of Antichrist's empire directly, but not standing up to him, not coming against him, and allowing Israel to fall or to be attacked. Because Babylon makes decisions based upon one thing and one thing only, the economy. And then, during this tribulation period, God says, Babylon is done. Christians taken out, the church is gone, but the Babylon that's left behind, you see, just like when Rome, chapter 17, the religious stuff that's left behind, chapter 18, the material stuff that's left behind, it's got to be judged. I believe personally that America could be Babylon. I also believe it could be that little city in Iraq is going to be the final end-time Babylon. Stay tuned. We'll see. But this I do know. Wherever Babylon is, be it New York or L.A., or a combination of those seaport cities, speaking of our whole nation, or whether it be in Iraq, in historical Babylon, this applies to us, to you and me today. In James chapter 5, I'll read it to you. Go now, you rich men, weep and howl for the miseries that shall come upon you. Your garments are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. Rich men, James says, Babylon, your garments are a witness against you. What garments? The garments that you're saving up and piling up for yourself. When you lose those 20 pounds, you might wear it again. Or I got to save that shirt because it might come back into style 15 years from now. What James is saying here is it's an indictment. All your stuff, John, you're not going to lose those 20 pounds. Give it away. Oh, but I might. And the stuff in your garage, John, you can't even open your garage door. And it's rusting in there. Oh, yeah, but one of these days I'm going to get some WD-40 and I'm going to get those things cranked up again, man. I'll tell you. It's my stuff. I mean, who knows when I'm going to... I mean, you know, I've got this bike that's about this high and, you know, one of my kids might shrink. I don't know. Or grandkids. Oh, that's a great one, isn't it? James says, howl, weep. He says, your garments are moth-eaten while you're waiting to lose those 20 pounds, John. The rust of your metal items is a witness against you and shall eat your flesh as it were fire.